Hey guys, here's a quick one for you. I got completely annihilated in a blitz game yesterday by White playing the Scotch Gambit, and I realised that I'd forgotten what to do when faced with the Scotch Gambit. Now the Scotch Gambit is a really spiky opening, and quite honestly I don't know why I don't see it more, because it's really difficult to play against. So if you don't know what it is, it comes from the Scotch game. So it's an e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. Okay, very normal. And now we get the Scotch, which is d4. Challenging for the centre. The most common move by a mile. So here I've got my games as black here. The most common move, well, that I've always played as well, is e takes d4. That's the typical thing. Obviously queen can't take because that's guarded by the knight. And then if knight takes d4, you can get, for example, into the, well, I will play the Steinitz variation, which at my level, at the intermediate level, scores very well. As you can see here, you know, black does a bit better. So with the Steinitz, with queen h4, I've got a 57% versus 34% win rate. Okay, you'll very often come out one pawn up going into the middle game, which is okay. Now, but what if White doesn't play knight takes d4? There are a bunch of other moves. You've got c3 is not uncommon. Knight takes d4 is most common, like we say, but bishop c4 brings us into the Scotch Gambit. And here we've got a kind of a fried liver type attack brewing, and you need to know how to deal with this. Yesterday I played h6. I kind of had a blank. I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to stop this knight from coming in. He can't come here because of my knight. I played h6 to stop him coming in. And you'll see that when I play h6, if he takes the pawn, white has won 3 times out of 3. You know, whatever I do, White has won in the past. Okay. Now, let's go back and just flip the board and let's see, because I used to play the Scotch. I used to play the hacksaw Gambit, which comes from the Scotch Gambit. Okay. So same kind of line. If we do this and they take, and then we play bishop c4, you can see I've got a 58% win rate against just 41 for black, right? And look, h6, most common move. Yeah, black gets nervous about these looming bishop knight combo coming in. h6, and we win 71% of the time as white. Bishop c5 is the second most common, and we've won 61%, because then we get into the hacksaw with c3, okay, and I've got a 60% win rate with a hacksaw Gambit. They take here, you then sack your bishop, and you do very well, thank you very much. So from the Scotch Gambit again, now where does black do best? Well, here the move is knight to f6. Knight to f6 looks scary because this knight's going to come flying in, right? But it's not too bad, and that's what I forgot. So what I'm going to do now, I've prepared a short little Lee chess study for you all with 3 different approaches to how to refute the Scotch Gambit. So join me, okay? And we'll start with, okay, Scotch game. We take, they don't take back, they bring out their bishop. The Scotch Gambit. Computer says this is already kind of equal for black. And here, I think the simplest way to go is knight f6, right? And the point is this. Well, they've got 2 approaches. You've got, if they go in with knight g5, right, attacking this, we'll look at that in a minute, okay? The most common move, actually castles is the second most common move here. The most common move is pawn to e5, right? And if they do that, then you have to know this one. Pawn to d5 now for black. Okay, they're attacking our knight, but we are now attacking their bishop. Okay, the bishop should move to b5 now. If they don't, black tends to win. That's the point. Okay, so your opponent now needs to know what to do. Let's assume they know to play b5. I mean, if they take the pawn here, then it's all very bad. Okay, it's that taking the pawn is inadvisable. Sorry, taking the knight on f6, inadvisable, because we will recapture the bishop. We'll line up our pawns. Got nice clamp over the centre. Queen's going to defend this one, and we're in a very good position. Now, if they play bishop b5, then you have knight back to d7. Now, there is a game with Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky. He's made a YouTube video on this as part of his speed run, where he plays this line. This is interesting. We've got two attackers on here, but of course we can't capture with both knights because between them they're both pinned. Okay. Most common move you'll see here is castles, and then in the Naroditsky game he actually plays this move, knight d back to b8, and that scores pretty well for black. Okay, let me set it to all levels here. Okay, knight d to b8 scores 45-45 across all levels, but bishop e7 is the simpler and more standard. That's 47-47, and you're kind of okay. You're kind of okay from this point. You don't have to worry too much. You have at least weathered the Scotch Gambit. Okay, so this is all we really need to know about this line. Okay, so if you want to play the knight f6 approach, if the pawn pushes, you counter-attack the bishop, and you will live to fight another day. Right, let's look at this version. The Scotch game, we take the pawn, we get the Scotch Gambit. Okay, we play our knight out to f6. And if they come straight in with the knight, the computer already says that we're slightly better. Actually, pawn to d5 here is the computer's choice. Pawn to d5 in the real world scores only 44 for black against 51. But you can now bring your knight round to e5, attacking the bishop. Okay, so what are they going to do? Now here again, if they drop their bishop back to b3, then white's doing okay. Queen takes d4 is the computer's recommendation, but you know, because we're hitting the bishop here, but also note we are defending f7. Okay, so if survival is your idea, let's say that they play the best move, they drop the bishop back. Okay, you can now play pawn to d5, and we're kind of equal here. Most common move here, though, most common move is f4, hitting our knight. And if you see that, you can play bishop to g4, attacking white's queen, defended by both knights, and funnily enough, black wins nearly 2/3 of the time from this point. But that, I think, is probably all you need to know about that. They may not play f4, they may play queen takes d4, they may play pawn takes d5, but either way, black is slightly better. If they castle, black is slightly better. So black is winning 55% of the time from this position, even though even the computer thinks that we're doing fine from this point. Okay, now there's another idea I would like to serve up for you, as you see on the board. Let's work it through. Okay, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, the Scotch game. We take the pawn and the bishop comes flying out. Okay, alternative approach, bishop c5. This is already equal. Okay, now white does pretty well from this point. The most common move, significantly, by about half the time you'll see pawn to c3, okay? And you don't take the pawn. Do not take the pawn, right? Knight to f6 is fine here. Well, we're okay, we're okay. If pawn takes, we slide your bishop over with check. They block with their knight. You can take the pawn now on e4 for free, because its only defender is this guy, and he's pinned, so he can't move. If they castle, which is the most common move, right, you can now take on c3 with your bishop, and black's winning 50% to 44 here. They may take, if they take on c3, then you're doing fine. You can then push d5, right, and attack this bishop supported by the queen. If they push their pawn, you just drop your bishop back. Now this looks kind of weird. You're thinking, hey, so we've got, so here, if they don't take, so we're temporarily we're a piece up, they push the pawn, you simply retreat. Okay, they take here, you take back with your b pawn, and you're a piece up, you're absolutely fine. If you come here and they take with a pawn, then d5, we're attacking this bishop, and we're actually in a very, very good place here. Most likely thing is they'll drop the bishop back to d3. Let's just work this through. You castle, and we're winning 55% of the time from this point. We're attacking this pawn. Queen's probably going to go to c2. You play bishop f5 and play on, basically. So the point is that the Scotch Gambit is entirely refutable. You just need to know what to do. And you've got a choice, you know, from this point. You've got knight to f6, and just remember, knight to f6 is fine. And as we saw on here, so from here, the games when I've played the Scotch Gambit, knight to f6 has won 60% of the time for black. Okay. On my games where I've played against the Scotch Gambit, knight to f6 has won, oh, it's only 3 out of 5, but still 60% for black. Knight to f6, probably your best bet. That would be my recommendation. So there is my little note to self. Try and remember how to play against the Scotch Gambit, because it really is spiky, guys. And you know, if you're I don't know, sub 1500, sub 2000, it's a perfectly good opening. And like you'll see in the Naroditsky game, he's playing against the 2100 and has a very, very tough time playing against this as well. So perfectly good opening, very, very dangerous opening. Recommended for white, quite honestly. But you know, if you're an e4, e5, knight f6, knight c, whatever, knight f3, knight c6 player as black, you're going to need to know what to do. So there you go. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you later.